Yo, my peoples, what's up? Welcome to 5 and 9 in the One Stop Co-op Shop, where I go over 5 things you need to know about a game in about 9 minutes or so. I'm going to shoot for that. Today I'm taking a look at Critical Care, the game. This one is a 1 to 4 player cooperative game, card-driven, in which you are playing ICU doctors. Your job is to care for patients as complications come in, as their condition gets worse. You are going to be playing your cards, treating them with therapies, finding combos. That's really the heart of the game, is finding those combos. I'll say more about that in the review. Critical Care is trying to balance the weightiness of the subject, trying to evoke the real sense of it, including dealing with issues of life and death and heavier things like that, while also being a fun card game to play. How does Critical Care manage that balance? Is it a fun card game to play? Is the replayability there? I'll get into all that and then my final thoughts. No financial disclosure necessary because I did back this game with my own money, but I do admit, as a fellow medical professional, I'm kind of rooting for this one. My number 5 at Definite Pro is the cooperation in Critical Care. You are playing ICU doctors, and you have your own patient that you're caring with, and your card play is going to mostly be focused on managing your own area. However, there is plenty of opportunity. You can play cards freely on other patients. So there may be situations where, in this particular case, there's lots of crisis. This person is very ill. So the player might ask, hey, could you help me out here? And you can play cards over there. Or on the other side of that, because if you totally treat a patient, that frees up the doctor to only help other patients, which is a great thing. You can say, okay, this one is close to leaving. Let's focus a little bit more on here, get them going, and then focus on the rest of the patients. That table talk, that back and forth, making those decisions, evokes the sense of an ICU team, which is very core to the ethos of the game. Excellently done. My number 4 is a mix, which is the path to victory. With each patient, you're going to choose which path to take. For the most part, these are maladies that are going to fill up because of the complications round to round. You're going to play cards to remove them. Remove all of them and you win the game. That's most of the cards are dedicated to managing this area in various ways. If this gets out of hand, about a third of these cards are dedicated to this hospice track. So let's say that this is too much to handle. You can progress this track and get the patient going to like a hospice care because you're basically triaging. They're too sick to treat in a normal way. Theoretically, I love it. It, again, evokes a sense of being in an ICU where it's like you have to make these decisions. You're trying your best, but sometimes you have to move on. Mechanically, it's great. Go for this, and then at a certain point in the game, you might have to pivot and then take care of this track. In practice, there are a lot of cards in this therapy deck that progress this very significantly. So it does not take much to get this progressed and the patient moved on that way. I felt like the balance was off a little bit on that. Every game I've played of this, by turn 3 or turn 2 even, I have sent the patient off to hospice care in a 7-round game that just makes things very easy. So something about the execution I think was a little bit off, but for the most part, I like what the structure is offering here. My number 3, a mix as well, is the swinginess of the obstacles with which you have to deal. So at the top of every round, you are going to deal with cards from this complication deck, amongst other things. Lots of cards like this diagnosis card elsewhere are going to put tokens on here, and these tokens are bad. Depending on how many of these crisis tokens you have, you are going to pull extra complications. So if you're not able to manage that, that's just going to blow up. And because of the nature of the game, you're not always going to get the cards you need to deal with this effectively. So you might just be stuck with that. In addition, the way the complications play out is you get more depending on if your tracks are full. If your tracks are full, then you are going to satisfy all the complication conditions, and there's going to be a ton of them, adding tokens and making your patient sicker and sicker. On the other side, if you keep this clear, you might miss some of the complications. So like there's a blood over here. They have no blood tokens, so this would get discarded. So it's pretty easy to get an easy draw and just be okay. The game is not hard, or swing over to the game feeling impossible. It's a roller coaster, and genuinely, I'm okay with that, especially over multiple plays. I don't mind if a play is easy or a play is difficult, etc., etc. You can play again. I think of it because if I want to take this to a game night, a library, I'm exposing players for the first time. It is very, very possible that the player either has too difficult or too easy a time with that first game. So that's just a buyer beware thing. Watch out for the swinginess. My number 2 is the theme, Massive Pro. It's going to be high up on anybody's list who reviews this thing. So much was done in order to bake in the theme, the medical terminology, the treatments, the different conditions, and the ICU staff and everything. So much. Every little corner of this thing has a surprise for you. You'll learn something. It's one of those things, if you know, you know. I'm a mental health therapist, so there are a bunch of cards in here that go along with mental health therapy, and I was able to resonate with that, not so much with other stuff. But I didn't have to know the other stuff. I don't have to read the flavor text. The symbols explain themselves, and the game plays off of the symbols. But if you want to dive in, there is so much to chew on. In addition, you have a handy-dandy glossary, which will give you even much more depth. This game is a love letter to this field of work, and as far as that goes, I don't think they could have done any better. My number 1, as much as I love the theme and I love to talk about it, you got to focus on the core mechanical experience. This game at its core is pretty simple. You play a card, has a symbol, you remove the matching token. Around that is a symbol matching system that really brings this game to life. I think that's why you are here. It reminds me of an Arc Nova type experience where if you have a card, you play it, it's fine, but then you pair it with 1, 2, 3, 4 copies in a certain family, and the card becomes that much more effective. This game has a giant stack of therapy cards, so you can have a lot of opportunity for matching. Not quite to the level of an Arc Nova. It's a much more simple game than that, but we're kind of thinking in that direction. Let me go ahead and give some examples. So let's say I want to puncture the lumbar of my patient, get rid of a whole bunch of tokens. Probably a good idea if I do a point of care ultrasound first. Scan before I puncture. If I have a nephrologist in my staff, then they are able to use some of these other treatments and get more out of them. If I have a patient that has a bleed to them, then I would exsanguinate them and then take care of that condition, remove that. If the person has influenza, they are going to be helped in a special way by the bronchoscopy. On and on and on. They make sense. You're not going to see all the combos in a particular game, not even close. It is exciting when you do make a match. So you're going to want to look out for that every single turn. Perhaps on the more limited side, once you get to play the game 3 or 4 times, you're going to recognize all the combos. They won't be that same pop that you first experience. But for the most part, I think that there's enough variety in the matching to sustain you for over multiple plays. Final thoughts time. If you are a mechanics inclined person that's looking for that tightly bound experience in your card games, then this one might present a little bit of a difficulty, especially with the swinginess of the incoming complications. However, if your mind and your heart are open to the theme at all, whether it's because you've watched the medical shows on TV or you have some of that in your personal life, Critical Care does a good job, in my opinion, of balancing the weightiness of the subject. It is a more serious take on it while still offering a mechanics inclined gamer that combo play and a lot of fun to be had at the table. So if you're able to kind of balance those two things in your mind and in your play group, then Critical Care is worth a look. This is Jason with the One Stop Co-op Shop, reminding that we'll see you at the next stop.